Hi there, CJ Math students. So this morning and this afternoon we're going to be working with adding mixed numbers with unlike denominators. So yesterday hopefully you finished these notes 1.8. Basically now today we're just doing the back side, which are notes 1.8 but just on the back side of it. So here we go. 3 and 11/16 plus 4 1/2. Basically, we're asking ourselves, just like if I were to cover these guys up, how to make 11/16 and 1/2? How can I add them together? I find common denominators. So I multiply 1/2 by 8 because 2 times 8 would be 16, and then I'll have a common denominator. So 3 11/16 plus 4 and 8/16. Add up your whole numbers. 3 plus 4 is 7. Add up your numerators. 11 plus 8 is 19/16. And now sometimes you would think, oh, we're done, but look right here. I have an improper fraction, right? So let's kick 7 off to the side right here. And let's change this 19/16 into a mixed number. So 19 goes into 16 one time. So this becomes 1. And with 3 left over, 3/16. Then basically all I do, add those two together. 7 plus 1 equals 8 and 3/16. And this is your total answer. So just to recap, you found common denominators, left the whole numbers the same, added them up, added your numerators, made sure that this fraction was proper. In our case, it was improper. So therefore, we changed this improper part of the fraction to a mixed number, and then we just added it to our whole number. Let's do S. So here, to find common denominators, I'm just going to go ahead and make this 4/5. I'm going to multiply by 2 to get the common denominator of 10. So 13 and 8/10 plus 4 and 7/10. Add your whole numbers, you get 17. 8 and 7 gives you 15/10. So again, the 17 is good, so we put it off to the side. We're going to be adding it to whatever 15/10 is. What's 15/10 as a mixed number? It's 1 with 5 left over and 5/10. Add those two together, you get your answer of 18 and 5/10. You could also simplify the 5/10. Hopefully you realize by now 5 is half of 10, so it's 18 and 1/2. I'll accept either answer for right now, but this is the fully simplified answer. All right. Let's do number 4. So times 4 times 4, you get 2 and 7/8 plus 5 and 4/8. Add them up, you get 2 plus 5 is 7, 7 plus 4 is 11/8. So 7 is good. We're going to add it to whatever this is as a mixed number. How many times does 8 go into 11? It goes in there one time with how much left over? 3. 3/8, 1 and 3/8. So what is our answer? 7 plus 1 and 3/8? 8 and 3/8 is our answer, and that's fully simplified. Let's do number 7. 9 and 6, what is the common denominator? Well, it's actually, I could multiply this one by 6 on top and bottom and that one by 9, but then I get a huge fraction that I would have to simplify. So let's do the common denominator of 18. So times 2, times 2, times 3, times 3. So I get 3 and 14/18 plus 8 and 15/18. Let's add this up. 3 plus 8 is 11. 14 plus 15 is 29. 18 and 18 stays the same, right? So how many times is 18? We keep the 11. How many times does 18 go into 29? Well, it goes in there one time. With how much left over? Happens to be 11, right? 29 minus 18 is 11. And we keep our denominator the same. So our answer happens to be 12 and 11/18. Right, so let's go ahead and move on to subtracting mixed numbers. So first step, find common denominators. So how do I make common denominators out of this? The common denominator should be 4, so just multiply this guy by 2. So it's 9 and 3/4 minus 4 and 2/4. And then we just subtract. 9 minus 4 is 5. 3 minus 2 is 1. And we keep the denominator, and that is fully simplified. Right? Notice there is no need to break up this improper fraction here because it's not an improper fraction, it's a proper fraction. So I don't need to say, oh, this is a 5 and then how many times does 4 go into 1? No, that's a proper fraction, we're good to go. Number 3, 9 and 6. We already found in a previous problem that the common denominator is 18, so let's do that. So times 2, times 2, times 3, times 3. So we get 8 and 16 over 18 minus 5 and 3 over 18. Subtract 8 minus 5 is 3, 16 minus 3 is 13, and you keep the 18. That's fully simplified. Number 5, the common denominator between 6 and 3 happens to be 6, so just multiply this by 2. Get 13 and 5 sixths minus 6 and 2 sixths. So 13 minus 6 is 7. 5 minus 2 is 3 6. This has to be simplified because while it's still a proper fraction, I can reduce 3 6, and that becomes 7 and 1/2. How did I do that? I divided both of those by their common factor of 3. Okay. Now there's another type of subtraction that we actually have to use borrowing. So notice in all of these problems, the 3 is bigger than the 2. The 16 is bigger than the 3. The 5 is bigger than the 2. But what happens when the top number, the first number we're subtracting by, is smaller than the second number? Well, just like we do in normal subtraction, we borrow, and we'll be borrowing from the whole number. So here, first let's find common denominators. So we have 8 and 1/4 minus 5 and 2/4. And this is what I'm talking about. I can't do 1 minus 2. That would be a negative number, which we haven't gotten to yet. So I have to borrow. So 8 and 1/4, I'm going to borrow from the 8. And when I borrow from it, this becomes a 7. And I'm borrowing 1 whole. But the whole, what it's broken up to, is determined by this denominator. So because we're using fourths, the whole that I'm borrowing is 4 over 4. We'll do this a whole bunch of times and you'll get the hang of it. But that's 4 divided by 4 is 1, and that's really like borrowing 1, right? 1/4, 4/4 plus 1/4. So this is what borrowing 1 from that 8 becomes, right? And then we're going to subtract that 5 and 2/4. First, let's simplify this, right? So this becomes 7, and 4 plus 1 is 5/4 minus 5 and 2/4, right? We did nothing with this bottom number. And then we just subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. Keep the denominator. There's your answer. So to be clear here, we had to borrow because this 1 was smaller than this 2. I couldn't do the 1 minus 2. So I said, oh, that means I have to borrow from the 8. I borrow from the 8. When I borrow from the 8, what I'm borrowing is 1 whole. And how I write the 1 whole is determined by that denominator. So because that was a 4th, I put 4 over 4. If that was a 5th, I would put 5 over 5. If that was a 3rd, I put 3 over 3. Let's do another one. So number 3, I'm going to go ahead and make common denominators by multiplying by 5. So I have 6 and 3/10 minus 2 and 5/10. I'd love to subtract here, 6 minus 2, but I can't. 3 minus 5, can't do it. So what does that mean? I have to borrow. So 6 and 3/10 I'm going to borrow. I'm going to borrow 1 from there. When I borrow 1 from there, the 6 becomes a 5. Now the whole, right? I borrowed 1 whole, and it's determined by this. So just like this was a 4th, and this became 4/4, this is a 10th, so this will become 10 over 10. Because 10 over 10 is just 1, right? If I add this to this, I get 6, right? So plus 3/10, the original thing that we had. Let's simplify this now. So 10 plus 3 is 13, so it becomes 5 and 13/10 minus 2 and 5/10. And now we can subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. 13 minus 5 is 8/10. We can simplify this, divide these both by 2, and we get 3 and 4/5. One more together. So find common denominators. Happens to be 9, so it's 12 and 4/9 minus 1 and 6/9. I can't do 4 minus 6, so I have to borrow. So 12 and 4/9. Borrow from the 12, that becomes 11. What is my whole number that I'm adding? Well, it was 9, so it's going to be 9 over 9 plus 4 over 9. What does this become? It becomes 11. What's 9 plus 4? 13 over 9. And now I can subtract. Minus 1 and 6 over 9. Subtracting 11 minus 1 is 10. 13 minus 6 happens to be 7 over 9. And there's your answer. Okay, you need to do the rest of the problems. And make sure you're showing work just like I am. This stuff will be on your quiz tomorrow. When you get finished, you may go ahead and work on homework 1.8, the back side, because you did the front side last night. You'll do the back side for homework tonight. And also make sure that your binder is fully complete, because I am checking those tomorrow for a grade.